She thought she had just slapped a stranger. But when her fiancé whispered, "Mom," the entire street went silent. That single moment destroyed a wedding, reopened buried wounds, and proved that some lessons in life come too late to fix. Welcome to Hotspot True Life Stories, where real choices, real pride, and real mistakes collide. If stories that mirror life and leave you thinking long after the end move you, subscribe, like, and share. Because this isn't just a story, it's life, lived. She doesn't remember what the old woman said first. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was an apology that came out wrong, softened by age and an accent she didn't recognize. Maybe it was just the way the woman looked at her, too long, too familiar, that made something inside her snap. The street in downtown Toronto is loud that afternoon. Car horns. Construction somewhere close. A food vendor shouting about fresh samosas. She's been walking for 20 minutes, trying to clear her head, trying to breathe through the tightness in her chest that's been there for weeks. The wedding is in 43 days. Her mother calls twice a day to argue about flowers. His father doesn't call at all, because he's been dead for 18 years, and she only learned that 2 months ago when she asked why he never mentioned him. The dress cost more than her first car. The venue deposit wiped out her savings. And this morning, her boss pulled her aside to say the company's restructuring, which is corporate language for start looking. So when the old woman bumps into her outside the coffee shop on Queen Street, when her shopping bags spill onto the sidewalk and she doesn't move fast enough, doesn't apologize the right way, doesn't lower her eyes, something breaks. "Watch where you're going," she hears herself say, sharper than she means to. The old woman blinks. She's small, maybe 70, wearing a faded blue coat that's been mended at the sleeves. Her face is lined in the way faces get when they've spent decades squinting into hard work. "I'm sorry," the woman says quietly, bending to pick up a bag. But she doesn't stop. She's already too far gone, too full of pressure that has nothing to do with this stranger and everything to do with the life she's trying to build on a foundation that keeps shifting. "You're sorry? You people never look where you're going. Just move." The words hang in the air. People slow down. A teenager pulls out his phone. The old woman straightens, and for a moment, something flickers across her face. Not anger. Something worse. Recognition, maybe. Or sadness. "I didn't mean," the woman starts. But she's not listening anymore. She's drowning in her own frustration, in the noise, in the weight of everything, and when the old woman reaches out, maybe to steady herself, maybe to touch her arm in some gesture of peace, she reacts. Her hand comes up fast. The slap is clean and sharp, the sound of it cutting through the street like a knife through silk. Everything stops. The old woman stumbles back, one hand rising slowly to her cheek. She doesn't cry out. Doesn't curse. She just stares, and the look in her eyes is so deeply, impossibly hurt that for a second, the world tilts. Someone gasps. The teenager with the phone is definitely recording now. And then, from behind her, a voice. "Mom?" She turns. He's standing there, 3 feet away, holding 2 coffee cups. Daniel. Her fiancé. The man she's supposed to marry in 43 days. His face has gone completely white. "Daniel," she whispers. But he's not looking at her. He's looking at the old woman, who is still holding her cheek, still staring at her with that terrible, wounded expression. "Mom," he says again, and this time it's not a question. The coffee cups slip from his hands. They hit the pavement and explode in a spray of foam and ceramic. She feels the ground disappear. No. No, this isn't. The old woman's eyes move from her to Daniel, and something in her expression shifts. Not anger. Resignation. Like she knew this would happen someday, and now that it has, she's just tired. "I should go," the old woman says softly. "Mom, wait," Daniel starts forward, but she's already turning, already walking away with her mended coat and her shopping bags, moving through the crowd that parts for her like water. She stands frozen, her hands still burning from the impact, her heart hammering so hard she thinks she might pass out right there on Queen Street while strangers film her and the man she loves stares at the space where his mother disappeared. When he finally looks at her, his face is unreadable. "That was her," he says quietly. "That was my mom." And she realizes, in a moment of perfect, crystalline horror, that there are some mistakes you don't get to take back. Some sounds that never stop echoing. Some seconds that rewrite your entire life. They said real stories don't matter anymore, that it's all just content and noise. But the truth is, the moments that break us are the ones we carry forever. If you believe that real life, raw, painful, and unforgettable, still deserves to be heard, subscribe to Hotspot True Life Stories. Because this is only the beginning, and what comes next is where the real reckoning starts. Let's proceed. They don't speak on the way home. Daniel drives with both hands on the wheel, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on the road like he's navigating through fog. She sits in the passenger seat with her hands folded in her lap, still feeling the ghost of impact in her palm. She wants to say something. Anything. But every sentence that forms in her mind sounds worse than silence. Their apartment is on the 19th floor of a glass tower in the financial district. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Marble countertops. The kind of place that looks perfect in photos and feels empty in person. He sets his keys on the counter with careful precision. She stands by the door, afraid to move deeper into the space they share. "Daniel." "Not yet," he says quietly. "Just, not yet." So she waits. He walks to the window and stands there for a long time, looking out at the city lights beginning to flicker on as dusk settles over Toronto. When he finally speaks, his voice is steady in a way that terrifies her more than shouting ever could. "Her name is Margaret," he says. "She's 72. She came to Canada when I was 6 months old. My father died when I was 3, heart attack, sudden, no warning. She raised me alone." She watches his reflection in the glass. She worked as a cleaner. Office buildings, mostly. Night shifts, because they paid better. I'd wake up at midnight sometimes and she'd be gone. I'd find her at 6 in the morning, asleep on the couch still wearing her work uniform. He pauses. I used to ask her why her hands were always red and cracked. She told me it was from the cold. I believed her until I was 12 and realized it was from chemicals. Industrial cleaners. The kind that strip everything away. She feels something crack open inside her chest. When I got into university, she worked double shifts. I told her not to. I said I'd take loans, defer, figure it out. She wouldn't hear it. She said education was the one thing no one could take from me. His voice drops lower. I graduated with honors. Got the job at the consulting firm. Started making real money. I wanted to take care of her, buy her a house, get her out of that basement apartment in Scarborough. You know what she said? She shakes her head, even though he's not looking at her. She said no. She said I'd worked hard to build my life, and she didn't want to be a weight around my neck. She said successful sons should move forward, not backward. That if people saw her, saw where I came from, they'd think less of me. That's not. I know, he cuts her off gently. I told her that. I told her 100 times. But she grew up in a different world. A world where people like her stayed invisible so their children could be seen. He turns from the window finally, and his eyes are red but dry. 3 weeks ago, she called me. Said she wanted to meet you. Just once. From a distance. She didn't want to intrude, didn't want to complicate things with your family or the wedding plans. She just wanted to see the woman I was going to marry. The words land like stones. I told her that was ridiculous. I told her she was invited to the wedding, that you'd want to meet her properly. But she insisted. She said she'd just be around. Maybe see you on the street one day. Maybe just watch from far away. She feels the room closing in. I didn't think she'd actually do it, he continues. I thought it was just her being modest, being careful like she always is. But she did. She went to your favorite coffee shop. She waited. And when she saw you. He stops, his throat working. She bumped into you on purpose. She wanted to hear your voice. Maybe exchange one sentence. That's all she wanted. One moment. One memory to carry. The silence that follows is unbearable. She thinks about the old woman's face. The way she looked at her. Not with anger after the slap, but with something far worse, disappointment mixed with understanding, like she'd expected cruelty and received confirmation. She never expected you to know who she was, Daniel says. She never expected recognition. She definitely never expected. He doesn't finish. He doesn't have to. She moves toward him, her legs unsteady. Daniel, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I was stressed and overwhelmed and I reacted. It was awful and wrong and I wish I could take it back, but I can't, and I'm so sorry. He nods slowly, like he's hearing her from very far away. I know you didn't mean it, he says. I know you're under pressure. I know the wedding planning has been insane and work is terrible and our families have been difficult. I know all of that. Then. But she doesn't know that, he says quietly. All she knows is that the woman her son loves looked at her like she was nothing. And then hit her. In public. In front of strangers. The truth of it sits between them like a third person in the room. I need to apologize to her, she says. I need to make this right. Daniel looks at her for a long moment, and in his eyes, she sees something she's never seen before. Doubt. Not about whether she's sorry. About whether sorry is a language his mother speaks anymore. You can try, he says finally. But you should know, my mother doesn't forgive easily. Not because she's cruel. But because she's been hurt so many times that forgiveness feels like volunteering for more pain. He walks past her toward the bedroom, and she's left standing alone in their beautiful, expensive apartment that suddenly feels like the loneliest place in the world. Outside, the city glitters with 1,000 lights. Inside, everything has gone dark. She finds the address 3 days later. Daniel didn't give it to her. He's barely speaking beyond logistics, what time he'll be home, whether she's eaten, small mercies that feel like bandages over something that won't stop bleeding. She gets it from his phone while he's in the shower. It's saved under Mom's Place, and the guilt of looking is nothing compared to the guilt that wakes her up at 3 a.m, replaying that sound, that look, that single word, Mom. The building is in Scarborough, 40 minutes east on the subway. The neighborhood is the kind that doesn't show up in Toronto tourism photos. Modest houses with chain-link fences. Corner stores with hand-painted signs. People who work 2 jobs and still smile at strangers. Margaret's building is a low-rise from the 70s, brown brick with narrow balconies. She climbs to the 2nd floor and stands outside apartment 2C for a full 5 minutes before knocking. No answer. She knocks again. Nothing. She tries the next day. And the day after that. On the 4th attempt, she brings flowers, simple daisies from the grocery store, because roses felt like she was trying too hard, and a handwritten letter she revised 17 times. This time, she hears movement inside. The door opens 3 inches, held by a chain lock. Margaret looks smaller than she remembers. Older. Her eyes are guarded, and there's a faint yellow bruise on her cheek that makes her stomach turn over. Mrs. Chen, she starts, her voice cracking. Please. I need to talk to you. There's nothing to talk about, Margaret says softly. Not angry. Just tired. You should go. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was stressed and horrible and I took it out on you, and you didn't deserve any of it. Please, just let me. I accept your apology, Margaret interrupts gently. Now please go. The door starts to close. Wait, she says desperately, putting her hand against the wood. Please. I know sorry isn't enough. I know I can't undo what I did. But Daniel, he's torn apart over this. He loves you so much, and I've hurt both of you, and I just... My son is a good man, Margaret says, and there's steel beneath the softness now. He will be fine. He has always been fine. He doesn't need me to be happy. That's not true. It has to be true, Margaret says, and something in her voice breaks. Because I've spent his whole life trying to make sure of it. Do you understand? I stayed away from his school events because the other mothers looked at me like I was the help. I didn't go to his graduation because I didn't want him to have to explain me. I made myself invisible so he could be visible. He never wanted that. What children want and what they need are different things. Margaret's eyes are wet but no tears fall. I came to see you because I wanted one memory. One moment where I could look at the woman who made him smile and think, good, she's strong, she'll take care of him. Instead, I learned that the woman he loves sees people like me as obstacles to step around. The words are a slap worse than the one she delivered. That's not who I am, she whispers. Maybe not, Margaret says. But it's who you were that day. And I'm too old and too tired to wonder which version is real. She's crying now, properly crying, and she doesn't care. Please don't punish him for my mistake. Come to the wedding. Let him have his mother there. He needs you. Margaret's expression softens, but not in the way she hopes. I'm not punishing anyone, she says quietly. I'm protecting him. If I come to that wedding, there will be tension. People will whisper. Your family will wonder who I am and why you never mentioned me. Daniel will be caught in the middle, trying to make everyone comfortable. That's not peace. That's pain. So you're just going to disappear? I've been disappearing for 20 years, Margaret says, and there's no bitterness in it, only fact. It's what I do best. It's what mothers like me do so sons like him can have better lives. That's not fair. Fair? Margaret almost smiles, but it's sad. You live in a glass tower, don't you? I looked up his address once. 19th floor. I stood outside once and looked up, trying to guess which windows were his. I was so proud I cried right there on the sidewalk. She doesn't know what to say to that. You have a good life ahead of you, Margaret continues. You and Daniel. Beautiful apartment. Good jobs. A wedding that probably costs more than I've made in 5 years. Don't let me complicate it. Don't let him feel guilty about being happy. He won't be happy without you. He will, Margaret says firmly. Because that's what I raised him to be. Strong enough to move forward. Even when it hurts. The door closes softly. She stands in the hallway for a long time, holding wilted daisies and a letter that will never be read, listening to the sound of a television through the thin walls and somewhere, a child laughing. When she finally leaves, she passes a woman in the stairwell, mid-50s, tired eyes, carrying cleaning supplies. The woman nods politely and keeps climbing. And she realizes with a sick feeling that Margaret probably still works nights. Still scrubs floors. Still makes herself invisible so the world stays comfortable. On the subway ride home, she sits next to a man reading the news on his phone. The headline is about record housing prices, about how the city is becoming unaffordable, about the growing divide between those who have and those who serve. She closes her eyes and sees Margaret's face. Sees that bruise. Sees 20 years of invisibility wrapped up in a faded blue coat. And she understands, maybe for the first time, that some kinds of poverty aren't about money. They're about dignity. And she stole that in a single, careless second. The first sign is the way he stares at his coffee in the morning. Not drinking it. Just looking at it like he's forgotten what it's for. They're 2 weeks from the wedding now, and the apartment has become a museum of careful silence. They move around each other with the practiced choreography of people who share space but not intimacy anymore. He still kisses her goodnight. Still reaches for her hand when they walk. But there's a distance in his touch that wasn't there before, like he's going through motions his body remembers but his heart has forgotten the reason for. She tells him about her visit to Scarborough. About Margaret's words. About the door closing. He listens without expression, then nods once and says, "Okay." Just that. Okay. Not angry. Not relieved. Just absent. "Talk to me," she says one night after dinner. They're sitting on the couch, a documentary playing that neither of them is watching. "Please, Daniel. You're disappearing." He looks at her, and she sees shadows under his eyes that weren't there a month ago. "I'm not disappearing," he says quietly. "I'm right here." "No, you're not. You're somewhere else. And I can't reach you." He's quiet for a long moment. Outside, a siren wails past. The city never stops making noise, but somehow their apartment has become the quietest place she's ever been. "I keep thinking about something," he finally says. "When I was 8, there was this kid at school, Marcus Chen. His mom was a lawyer. She'd show up in these sharp suits, always on her phone, always important. I remember being so jealous." He pauses, his fingers tracing the rim of his wine glass. "One day, Marcus asked me what my mom did. I panicked. I told him she was a nurse. I don't know why I said that. Maybe because it sounded respectable. Maybe because I was ashamed. When I got home that night, I couldn't look at her. She'd made me dinner, rice and vegetables, the same thing we had every night because it was cheap, and she was smiling, asking about my day, and I wanted to die." She reaches for his hand, but he doesn't squeeze back. "Years later, I apologized for it," he continues. "Told her I'd lied about her job, that I was young and stupid. You know what she said? She said, 'That's good. That means I did it right. That means you fit in.'" His voice cracks slightly. "She was proud that I was ashamed of her. That's how badly she wanted me to succeed. That's how much she was willing to erase herself. Daniel. And now," he says, looking at her fully for the first time in days, "I'm about to marry someone who looked at her and saw a problem to be removed." The words land like ice water. "That's not fair," she says. "I didn't know who she was. I was having the worst day, and I snapped at a stranger, and it was awful and wrong, but it wasn't personal." "But that's exactly it," he says, and there's no anger in his voice, only a terrible sadness. "It wasn't personal to you. You saw an old woman who didn't matter. Someone you could dismiss. And the fact that it could have been anyone, that's what breaks my heart." She feels tears building. "So what are you saying? That you can't forgive me?" "I'm saying I don't know how to reconcile the person I thought you were with the person who did that." He sets down his wine glass with careful precision. "I'm saying every time I look at you, I see her face. That bruise. The way she stumbled. And I'm trying so hard to separate the woman I love from that moment, but I can't. Then we cancel the wedding," she says desperately. "We postpone. We take time to." "That's not the answer." He stands, moving to the window where he spent so much time lately. "Canceling doesn't change what happened. Time doesn't erase it. Then what do we do?" He doesn't answer for a long time. Below them, the city pulses with life, people going to dinner, catching shows, living in ways that feel impossibly carefree from up here. "My mother called me yesterday," he finally says. "First time since it happened. She said she doesn't want me to call off the wedding. She said she wants me to be happy, and that happiness sometimes means choosing forward over backward." "She said that?" "She also said she won't be coming." His reflection in the glass looks like a ghost. "Not because she's angry. Because she thinks her presence would make things harder for everyone. Because she's spent her whole life believing that the best thing she can do for me is stay out of the way." He turns from the window, and in the low light of the apartment, he looks older than 32. "So we're going to get married," he says. "We're going to have the wedding we planned. We're going to stand up there and make promises and cut a cake and dance. And there will be a chair in the front row that stays empty, and every single person there will know why, even if they don't say it. Daniel, we don't have to. Yes, we do, he interrupts gently. Because if we don't, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if I gave up on us too easily. If I let one terrible moment define everything. And I owe it to both of you, to my mother and to you, to at least try to build something good from this wreckage. She's crying fully now. Do you still love me? The question hangs between them like smoke. Yes, he says after a pause that lasts forever. But I also love her. And I'm realizing that sometimes love doesn't solve things. Sometimes it just makes you aware of how complicated everything really is. He walks past her toward the bedroom, and she hears the door click softly closed. She sits alone on the couch with the documentary still playing, some nature show about animals that mate for life, and she thinks about how humans are so much messier than that. How we hurt the people we love without meaning to. How sorry isn't always a bridge, sometimes it's just a word. How you can be right here in the same room with someone and still be impossibly, irreversibly far away. The dress hangs in her closet like an accusation. White silk. Hand beaded. Fitted at the waist in a way that took 3 alterations to get right. She used to open the closet just to look at it, to feel the little thrill of this is real, this is happening, this is my life. Now she can barely stand to be in the same room with it. The wedding is in 4 days. Her mother calls from Vancouver with updates she didn't ask for. The florist confirmed the orchids. Your cousin Jessica is bringing that new boyfriend, the one from her yoga class, can you believe it? And your father finally got his suit tailored. He looks so handsome, honey. You're going to cry when you see him. She makes appropriate sounds while staring at the seating chart spread across their dining table. Table 1. Front row. Daniel sighed. One name written in elegant calligraphy, Margaret Chin. One chair that will stay empty. Are you even listening? Her mother asks. Sorry, Mom. Yeah. Orchids. Jessica's boyfriend. Got it. You sound tired. Are you sleeping enough? You know stress shows up on wedding photos. Maybe ask your doctor for something to help you relax. Maybe ask your doctor how to undo a slap heard around the world. I'm fine, she lies. Just busy. After she hangs up, she sits at the table for an hour, staring at that name. She's rewritten it 3 times, like if she makes the letters beautiful enough, it might change reality. Daniel comes home late from work. He's been staying later, taking calls in the car before coming up. Anything to delay being here. Your mom called, she says. Wants to know if we need anything. I'll call her back. He sets his briefcase down, loosens his tie. The gestures are automatic, mechanical. Like he's an actor playing the role of man coming home from work. We could still invite her, she tries. Your mom. I could go back, try again. She won't come. He says it without emotion, just stating a fact like the sky is blue or water is wet. I called her yesterday. Talked for 30 minutes. She's made up her mind. What did you say? Everything I could think of. That I needed her there. That it wasn't complete without her. That I was sorry for, he stops, corrects himself. That we were sorry for what happened. And? She said she'd already bought me a gift. Said she'd drop it off at my office before the wedding. Said she hopes I have a beautiful life. His jaw tightens. She talked about it like she was going away. Like this was goodbye. The word sits between them like a stone. Maybe after the wedding, she suggests weakly. Maybe once things settle down, we could. She's moving. He says it flatly, looking at something past her shoulder. Found a place in Montreal. Her sister lives there. She's leaving next month. The air goes out of the room. Daniel, no. You have to stop her. You have to. I can't stop her, he says, and for the first time, there's heat in his voice. Not anger, but something rawer. Desperation. She's a grown woman making her own choices. Choices she thinks are protecting me. And maybe they are. Maybe her being gone makes everything simpler. You don't believe that. I don't know what I believe anymore. He moves to the window, his favorite spot lately, like the city lights have answers the apartment doesn't. My boss asked me today if I was okay. Said I seemed distracted. I'm up for partner review in 3 months, and I can't focus on a single spreadsheet without seeing her face. She joins him at the window, careful to leave space between them. Below, Toronto sparkles. People having dinner. People in love. People whose worst mistake hasn't caught up with them yet. A guy at work got married last year, Daniel continues. Big wedding. His whole family came, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins from Italy. I remember being jealous of how loud they were at the reception. How much space they took up. How proud they were. He's quiet for a moment. I'm going to have 3 people on my side. My mom's chair will be empty. And everyone there will know it's because the bride assaulted her on Queen Street. They don't know that, she says quickly. They will. He turns to look at her, and his eyes are red-rimmed. You think word doesn't travel? Your cousin works in marketing. My colleague's wife is in your mom's book club. Toronto's a small world when you live in certain circles. People talk. She feels sick. Let them talk, she says, trying for strength she doesn't feel. Let them judge. We know the truth. We know I made a terrible mistake and I'm trying to fix it. You can't fix it. The words come out sharp, then he softens. I'm sorry. But you can't. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Some things don't get fixed. They just become part of the story. Part of who we are now. So what does that make us? He looks at her for a long time, and she sees something in his face that terrifies her. Not hate. Not even disappointment anymore. Resignation. I don't know, he admits. I look at you and I see the woman I fell in love with. Smart, driven, funny. The person who stayed up all night helping me prep for that client pitch. Who brings me coffee exactly how I like it. Who laughs at my terrible jokes. Then. But I also see the woman who hit my mother. He says it simply, without accusation. Just truth. And I'm trying to figure out if those are 2 different people or if they're the same person, and I'm the one who was seeing what I wanted to see. The silence that follows is broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic. Do you want to call it off? She finally asks, her voice small. No, he says, but there's no joy in it. Because calling it off doesn't solve anything either. It just adds another loss to the pile. And my mother would blame herself, which would kill me. So we go through with it. We go through with it, he confirms. We stand up there and make our promises. We smile for photos. We dance. We cut the cake. And maybe somewhere in all that pretending, we figure out how to mean it again. He leaves the window, heading for the bedroom. She stays, looking out at the city that suddenly feels like it's watching. Judging. Waiting to see what happens when 2 people try to build a life on a foundation that's already cracked. Her phone buzzes. A text from the wedding planner, final headcount needed by tomorrow. So excited for you both. She looks at the seating chart one more time. That empty chair. That name in perfect calligraphy. That space where love and loyalty split apart and left a wound that won't close. And she wonders if you can marry someone while knowing you broke the thing they loved most in the world. The morning of the wedding arrives with perfect weather. Clear skies over Toronto. 72 degrees. The kind of day that makes people believe in fresh starts and happy endings. She wakes up at 5, even though she doesn't need to be at the venue until noon. Daniel's already gone. Tradition dictates they spend the night apart, so he stayed at a hotel downtown with his best man, who flew in from Vancouver and knows nothing about empty chairs or Montreal or slaps that echo. The dress fits perfectly. Her makeup artist does something magical with concealer that hides the shadows under her eyes. Her hair is pinned in soft waves that took 90 minutes and 3 people to achieve. When she looks in the mirror, she sees a bride. Beautiful. Radiant. Exactly what she's supposed to be. Underneath, she feels like she's going to shatter. "You look stunning," her mother says, tearing up right on schedule. "Your father's going to lose it when he sees you." Her bridesmaids, college friends who flew in, who know her as the girl who always had her life together, flutter around adjusting her veil and taking photos for Instagram. "This is going to be the wedding of the year," Jessica says, posing with champagne. "The venue is gorgeous. Have you seen the flowers? They're insane." She smiles. Nods. Says the right things. Inside, she's counting down to the moment she has to walk past that chair. The venue is a restored heritage building in the Distillery District, all exposed brick and romantic lighting. 200 guests. A string quartet. Flowers that cost more than Margaret's monthly rent, probably. She stands in the bride's room, listening to the music start, and her father appears in his tailored suit, looking exactly as proud as her mother predicted. "Ready, sweetheart?" he asks, offering his arm. She's not. But she takes it anyway. The doors open. The music swells, Pachelbel's canon, traditional and safe and exactly what everyone expects. She starts walking. The aisle is lined with people she's known her whole life and people she's met once. They're all standing, all smiling, all watching her glide toward the man at the altar who looks handsome and hollow in his tuxedo. And then she sees it. Front row. Daniel's side. The chair. It's there, exactly as she knew it would be, draped with a single white lily someone placed there, probably Daniel, probably this morning, probably with hands that shook. The empty space screams louder than applause. She keeps walking, but something inside her starts to crack. Past her mother's tears and her aunt's approving nod. Past colleagues from work and friends from yoga and people who will post about this on social media with heart emojis and congratulations. Past that chair that holds more weight than every filled seat combined. She reaches the altar. Daniel takes her hands, and his grip is firm but his eyes are somewhere else. Looking at her but also through her, like he's seeing double, the woman he's marrying and the ghost of who he thought she was. The officiant begins. Words about love and commitment and choosing each other every day. She hears herself respond at the right moments. Hears him do the same. They exchange rings, white gold, inscribed with a date that already feels like it belongs to different people. "I do," she says when prompted. "I do," he echoes. The words sound like surrender. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant announces. Daniel leans in, and she closes her eyes, and his lips brush hers with the gentleness of someone handling something broken. The crowd erupts in applause. They turn to face everyone, married now, supposedly happy, and she sees faces beaming back at them. Her mother sobbing. His best man grinning. 200 people who believe in the story they're seeing. And then her eyes catch on someone at the back. For one impossible second, she thinks she sees her. An old woman in a faded blue coat, standing by the exit, just watching. But when she blinks, there's no one there. Just empty space and late afternoon light filtering through old windows. They walk back down the aisle together, his hand on the small of her back, and she feels the weight of that chair behind them like gravity. At the reception, speeches are made. His best man talks about how Daniel always knew what he wanted, how he's the most dedicated person he knows, how lucky she is to have him. Her maid of honor talks about love conquering all, about two people who are perfect together, about happily ever after. No one mentions the empty chair. No one mentions Montreal. No one mentions the fact that the groom's mother isn't here, and everyone is too polite or too uncomfortable to ask why. But she can feel it. The questions hovering like smoke. The whispers that will start later, in cars on the way home, in text threads that don't include them. Did you notice his mother wasn't there? I heard something happened. Someone told me the bride. The stories will take on lives of their own. Mutate. Spread. Become legend and rumor and cautionary tale. She dances with Daniel during their first dance. John Legend, all of me, another safe choice that feels like irony now. His hand rests on her waist, but there's air between them that wasn't there when they practiced this in their living room 2 months ago. Are you okay? She whispers. I don't know, he answers honestly. Ask me in a year. The wedding continues around them. Cake cutting. Toasts. Laughter. Her cousin Jessica gets tipsy and tells a story about college that's funnier than it should be. The food is excellent. The band is perfect. Everything runs exactly as planned. And through it all, she feels that absence like a missing limb. When the night finally winds down and they're in the car heading to their hotel, they're flying to Greece tomorrow for a honeymoon neither of them has talked about in 3 weeks, Daniel pulls something from his jacket pocket. A small box, wrapped in plain paper. She dropped this at my office yesterday, he says quietly. Left it with the security guard. Didn't come up. She looks at the box like it might explode. Open it, he says. Inside is a bracelet. Simple. Silver. Old-fashioned. And a note in careful handwriting. This was my mother's. She gave it to me when I left home. I wore it the day you were born. I want you to have it now, to remember that love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's letting go. Be happy, my son. That's all I ever wanted. Mom. Daniel stares at the bracelet, his jaw working, and then he does something she hasn't seen him do since that day on Queen Street. He cries. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just tears running down his face while he holds this small piece of his mother, this inheritance of absence, this gift that feels like goodbye. She reaches for him, and this time he doesn't pull away. They sit in the back of the car, married and broken and trying, while Toronto slides past the windows and their driver pretends not to notice. We're going to figure this out, she whispers, not sure if she believes it. Maybe, he says. Or maybe we just learn to live with it. With the weight of what we lost. With the space she left behind. Is that enough? He looks at her, really looks at her, and she sees in his eyes something ancient and sad and true. I don't know, he admits. But it's what we have. The car pulls up to the hotel. Somewhere in Montreal, an old woman is packing boxes for a new life in a city where her son won't accidentally see her on the street. Somewhere in Toronto, 200 people are uploading photos of a perfect wedding. And here, in this moment, 2 people who love each other sit with the truth that love doesn't always conquer anything. Sometimes it just teaches you what you can and cannot carry. Sometimes it just shows you that some chairs stay empty forever. Sometimes it just asks if you're brave enough to build something anyway. Pride can shatter a relationship in seconds, but rebuilding what's been broken takes a lifetime. She never meant to destroy the sacred bond between a son and his mother. She was stressed, overwhelmed, blinded by her own pressures. But in one careless moment, she wounded the woman who had sacrificed everything in silence, who chose invisibility out of love. Margaret didn't demand apologies or revenge. She simply stepped back, believing that the best gift she could give her son was her absence. And that quiet dignity, that selfless retreat, might be the most heartbreaking kind of love there is. Some mistakes don't get fixed. They get carried. And the question isn't whether we deserve forgiveness, it's whether we're strong enough to live with the weight of what we've done and still choose love anyway. If this story reminded you that words and actions leave marks we can never erase, that dignity matters, that the people we overlook often carry the deepest love, then let us know in the comments what moment touched you most. Hit that like button if real stories like this still matter to you. Subscribe to Hotspot True Life Stories, because we're here to tell the truth about life under pressure. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, sometimes the quietest people in the room are the ones who've sacrificed the most. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next story.